Hi guys, Rose here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to go through and show you how I made this Princess Peach cosplay for my friend Pilla Cosplay. Now, this is part 2 of how I made the skirt for this cosplay, so if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would recommend you go do that first. Okay, now let's get into the video.
Now, the last thing we did in part 1 was iron on the vinyl on the open skirt at the top and the dark pink skirt at the bottom. We're going to start off by finishing off the dark pink skirt at the bottom. Now, we already finished sewing the skirt together, hemming it and getting the vinyl on in part 1, so we don't have that much left to do to finish off this layer of the skirt. The first thing I'm going to do is install the zipper in the back and finish up the back seam. After I've gotten the zipper on, the only thing that's left is to gather it at the top and get the lining on. To help me gather the skirt, I made this small circle skirt out of muslin that I used to help me gather the dark pink skirt at the top. To help me gather the skirt, I decided to make some small folds all the way around the skirt. I did this by marking the middle of the pink skirt and pinning it to the muslin skirt and doing this repeatedly, finding the middle of both skirts. Pinning them together and finding the middle of the space in between the marks I've already made. Once I had finished gathering the dark pink skirt at the top, I sewed down the folds. The last step for this layer is sewing the lining to the skirt. I made the lining for this skirt using a stabilizer made specifically for sewing linings. All you have to do is iron it on the lining fabric and sew one side of the lining to the outside of the skirt, right sides facing together. Fold the lining in two and iron up the seam allowance on the side that's not already sewn to the skirt. Pin the lining in place and hand sew the loose side of the lining to the inside of the skirt. I also ended up making these two loops on each side of the skirt and sewing them on just to make it easier to store the skirt later on. Now that we have finished the dark pink skirt, we're going to start working on the circle skirt with a big ruffle at the bottom. The first thing we're going to do with this skirt is sew the side seams and part way up the back just like we did with the other skirts in part 1. I really wanted this skirt to sparkle a lot, so I attached a lot of hot fix diamonds to it. Adding all the diamonds took forever. Luckily Pitta did help out, so I didn't have to do them all by myself. Even with Pitta helping me, I was so tired of diamonds by the end of it. However, once I'd gotten a chance to take a break from all the diamonds and could take a step back and look at it, I really think it was worth it. Now, don't make the same mistake as me and start attaching the diamonds before hemming the skirt. Doing the diamonds first just made everything much harder and I ended up having to take some of the diamonds off again so I could sew the hem on the skirt. So, remember, hem your skirt first, then diamonds. Now, since I already had to take some of the diamonds off to hem the skirt, I decided to leave them off for the next step too, which is adding the giant ruffle at the bottom. Now, I wasn't gonna do all these gathering by hand, so I decided to use my sewing machine to help me out. Once I was done ruffling the lace, I pinned it on the bottom of the circle skirt and sewed it on. Finishing off the skirt, I had to reapply the diamonds I took off earlier.
Okay, remember, if you like this video and want to see more content like this, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below and I'll try to get back to you.
Okay, now that we're done with 2 of the 3 main skirts for this dress, we're going to start working on the last one, which is the open circle skirt at the top. Now, we already started working on this layer of the skirt in part 1, but now we're going to finish it. The first thing we're going to do is install the zipper in the back and finish up the back seam. Once we're done installing the zipper, all that's left is to sew the ruffle that's going to go around the edge. I ruffled the lace using my sewing machine, pinned it on and then sewed it down. Okay, now that we got that ruffle on, we're done with the 3 main layers for this skirt. Okay, the only things left to do now before sewing everything together is making the dark pink side poofs and the white half circle thing in the front. To make the pink side poofs, I cut out 2 long rectangles and sewed up one side of them. I also decided to add some more sparkles. To make the white thing in the front, I cut out half of a circle of the same fabric I used for the front panel of the corset, and then I sewed a ruffle of the same fabric and sewed it on around the edge. I pinned everything on the bust just to see how everything looked and if I was happy with it. After having everything pinned up on the bust and having Pida try it on, I wasn't quite happy with how everything fit and I decided to add some small pillows underneath the poofs just to give them some more volume at the hips. I also ended up sewing these small pocket bags that I could hide underneath the side poofs just so Pida would have somewhere to put her phone and wallet and everything else during the con day. I did one last try on just to make sure I was happy with everything before starting sewing everything together. Now, I was sewing this skirt in 2 layers. The dark pink skirt was going to be separate from everything else just to make everything a little bit more convenient while traveling around and transporting it. I made another small muslin skirt just to help me gather everything and have something to sew everything onto. Now I'm gonna gather one on one layer from the bottom up, sewing them down one at a time, starting with the skirt with the big ruffle and all the diamonds. Once I had that layer ruffled and sewed down, it was time to do the next layer. The next layer being the open circle skirt in the front with a vinyl on it. Okay, now that we got the 2 main parts of the skirt done, we're going to sew on the wide half circle in the front, and after that we're going to sew on the pockets and the pillows on the side. Now that that's done, let's start working on the side poofs. To sew the side poofs onto the skirt, it might be a smart idea to hand stitch them on first just to make sure nothing's gonna move. Now, getting the side poofs on can be kinda tricky. Now, to get the poof effects, take one of the corners of the long side that is hemmed and pin it to the middle of the front of the skirt. Take the middle of the long side that's not hemmed and pin it to the middle of the side of the skirt. Take the corner of the short side that is not hemmed at the bottom and then pin it about 10 centimeters from the middle of the front of the skirt. Repeat what you did with the 2 corners of the short side on the back side as well. Now that you fasten the long side of your rectangle to the middle of the skirt and put all your corners into place, you're going to start pinning up the rest of the fabric. Hand stitch the fabric down just to make sure nothing moves before sewing it down on your sewing machine. Now, you have a lot of fabric going into a smaller space, so be careful and distribute the fabric evenly and be sure you're happy with how it looks before sewing it down. Once we're done sewing on the poofs, the only thing left to do is sew on the lining and also sew on some loops so we can hang the skirt up.
Now, that's it for this video. I really hope you found it interesting and that you learned something new. And remember, if you want to see the finished cosplay, you need to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out. The next video going up on my channel is going to be how I made the corset, and we're also going to reveal what the final costume looks like. Bye guys!
How I've tried, written down the words to say it is time. I've been waiting 5 days to explain how you make me feel inside, baby.